Today, let's build another full stack application. This is really simple project basically. And this project will allow you to basically create new data, which is JSON data, and share to everyone. So here, as you can see, I cannot go to dashboard because I'm not logged in. So let's try to sign in. So basically, I use Clerk for the authentication. Let's log in with Google. Alright, so now we are logged in. Let's go to dashboard, and as you can see, I have a list of my data here. Let's create another JSON data, and I'm gonna give a name data example, right? And for the JSON data, I'm going to say name to hello, or maybe let's change the name to message. I'm gonna click save, and now as you can see, we have data example here, right? I'm going to click this link here. It should be open the detail page, and now I can share that on anyone on the world basically, and user not logged in can still see this data, right? That's super simple, and we are going to use Prisma to connecting with our PostgreSQL to store the data basically, right? That's what we're going to build. So hope this video will helpful, and let's just get started. Alright, so let's start from the scratch. We're going to install a Next.js application. Let's open a terminal. Here I'm on my YouTube content folder, and here I'm going to say npx create next app at lattice, and just give a random name in here, and I'm going to say share JSON data. Hit enter. TypeScript yes, ESLint yes, Tailwind yes, source directory yes, app router yes, import alias just say no. Alright, so now let's cd into the share JSON data, and inside in here, let's open that inside Visual Studio Code. We can do code and then dot. It will open Visual Studio Code like this. Let's make it bigger, and I want to install Shadcn right now. So let's open Shadcn documentation, and we are going to initialize the Shadcn right here. Let's copy the command, go to the terminal, hit enter. Style, I'm going to select New York, neutral, CSS variable yes. It will installing some folder right here and file, and also some dependency. So now let's start to do npm run dev. It will open localhost 3000, and now let's take a look what we have. Alright, so this is what we have, but first let's go back to the global CSS app and then global CSS. So what we need to do is just remove this right here. I'm going to remove this, I think just this body and all this up here. I'm going to remove that, and now as you can see, this is clean white background. I think let's first clean up the page.tsx right here. I'm going to remove all of this inside the return, and then here I just want to, let's say, return, and then I'm going to do just simple div here and just say hello world, just like that. Now we should see hello world on the browser like that. So next, let's create the Navbar component. Inside the source, I'm going to create component folder, and inside the components folder, let's do navbar.tsx. Here I'm going to say rfc and change that name to navbar with capital N right here, navbar, and don't forget to import that on the layout. Just make sure import in the top of the children. Let's do navbar just like that. Save it, and we see navbar. Right, so let's just styling that a little bit. So here I just want to remove this tag right here, and for the div here I'm gonna say class name into, I want to the navbar should be sticky, and then I want to top 0, and the z is gonna be 30. It's going to be always on the top, and then I'm gonna say border bottom like that, and also the background I'm gonna say bg background. Also the px, which is the padding horizontally, I'm gonna say 4, and also for the small, I'm going to increase that by say px6, just like that. And inside in this div here, I'm going to create another div. Let's do flex, and then item, just make sure it's gonna be on center, and justify should be, let's say, between, and then the mx, I'm gonna do auto to make it this maximal width into the center. Let's say 4xl, and for the height I'm gonna say 16. Alright, so here it's basically the logo come in. Let's do heading 1, let's say logo, and it's basically the login. It's gonna be a login button. Right, so let's save and let's take a look what we have. As you can see, on the left we have logo, on the right we have login button. Here I want to say div. Let's do class name. It's gonna be flex, and gap I'm gonna say 4, because I just want to put logo and also the navigation inside this div right here. Right, so here I'm gonna do, it's gonna be the logo. The logo should be wrapping with link, because when we click the logo it should be always back to the root of our application, right? So let's do link, and then inside link we have, I think I'm going to render some icon in here. Let's do external link. It's gonna become from the Lucid React, and let's add the class name height. I'm gonna do 6, and width I'm gonna do 6 as well. For this link we should add the href. It's gonna be go through the / which is on the home road, and here I'm gonna say class name, display flex, item center, also the gap I'm gonna do 2. All right, and then here I'm gonna say span for the just the title of the icon. I'm gonna say class name. Let's do class name into font bold. Also inside the span I'm gonna say share JSON, just like that. Save, and as you can see we have this beautiful logo. Great. So now just still inside the flex right here I'm gonna put nav, right? And this nav here should be have a link, should become from the next link as well. And inside this link we have the dashboard like that, and here I'm gonna say href. When I click that dashboard it should be go to / dashboard, right? And also we have class name, text to small, also font I'm gonna say medium, also the text I'm gonna say mute, foreground and transition colors. And when I hover that, let's do hover, I'm gonna change the text into foreground. Right, let's save and let's take a look what we have. As you can see, if I hover this, right, the color is a little bit have some animation. Next, what we are gonna do, basically let's create the button login right here. Basically the button should become from the Shadcn component. So let's just close this terminal, and I want to say npx Shadcn add latest, and I'm gonna say add button, just like that. It will basically install the button component and bring that into the UI component inside the components folder right here. As you can see, now we have a UI folder, and inside that we have the button component right here. Alright, so let's use it. Here I'm going to say npm run dev. Let's do npm run dev, and here on the heading one I'm going to change that to buttons. It should become from /UI, and then inside this button we have sign in, right? And then also the variant I'm going to do, let's say outline, just like that. As you can see we have this button, really cool, looks super simple. Alright, so next I'm going to just add some title and description on this page right here. Really simple title and description. So let's go to page right here, and let's remove this hello world. Right, and I'm going to wrap all these children basically inside this layout with maximal weight. So here I'm gonna say div, I'm gonna say class name into maximal width into, I'm gonna say 4XL, right? And MX to auto to make it at on center. Also the padding horizontally I'm gonna do 4, and put these children inside that div. So now we have right here. And also let's try to add margin top. I'm gonna say 10 or something like that. Yeah, I think it's fine. Great. So next, let's working with our dashboard, right? When I click the dashboard, of course, nothing going on right here because we don't create any dashboard page. So now let's create the dashboard page. So inside the app folder, I'm gonna create another folder called a dashboard. And inside the dashboard, I'm gonna say page.tsx. So here, let's do RFC, change the component name into a dashboard page like that. And of course, now we have this dashboard page, right? So right in this div, I'm going to remove that text, and then let's do a div here and say class name into, I'm gonna say margin vertically into 8. Also inside this div, I'm gonna say heading 1, let's say dashboard. And also inside this heading 1, let's say class name into text 3XL. Also the font, I like to say bold here. Nice. And also for the p tag, I'm gonna say manage your data and share it with others, just like that. And for the p tag, let's add class name into text mute, let's say mute foreground. Save. Now we should see this beautiful title and text, right? Next, let's create the JSON form. Let's go back to the VS Code here and just want to close everything. And inside the source component, let's create a file called, I'm gonna give a name JSON editor, just like that, .tsx, right? So here I'm gonna say RFC, change the name to JSON editor, just like that. And just make sure we import this JSON editor into the let's go to the dashboard here and we render that in here. JSON editor. Now we should see this text. Cool. On the final project, as you can see, this is the final project. We have the card and some title, and this is basically the card content, and it's basically the card footer. So let's go to the Shadcn, and this is what I use basically. As you can see, on the card we have header, content, and footer, right? That's what we are gonna use in this card right here. Nice. So let's first install the card. Let's go back to Shadcn and then just copy this command. I use npm, open another tab here. Let's hit enter. All right, we're done. As you can see inside the UI, we have some card here. Nice. And now what we are gonna do is, I just want to copy and paste basically the example. Let's go with this one. I'm gonna copy that, go to this JSON editor. I'm gonna paste that right here. Let's paste that right here. And also just make sure we also import this component on the top like that. Let's close this terminal and see what we have. As you can see, we have card title, description, content, and also the footer. Let's change the title here. I'm going to remove that and change that into, let's say, save JSON data like that. And for the description, I'm going to do view and share your save JSON data. Here we go. And for the content here, this is basically will be the table. So if you see on the final project, if I add new data here, let's say name to John, Joss, or whatever. If I click save, as you can see, it's basically a table, right? The table, it should be on the another file. So let's just create the component. Inside the components folder, I'm gonna create a file called, I'm gonna give a name JSON data table .tsx. Here I'm gonna say RFC and change that to JSON data table. So now let's import that right here. So we can do JSON data table. Now we should see JSON data table here. So how do we create a table? Because we're using Shadcn, of course, we are going to use the table from the Shadcn component. Let's select, I believe, table right here. As you can see, this is what we are going to use, very simple table, and I'm going to install that. So let's copy with npm, open terminal, and paste that right here, hit enter. So now let's go back to the documentation, and I just want to copy and paste all of this, I think. Yeah, I just want to copy all this table right here, copy that, paste that right here, save, and as you can see we have a lot of error because we don't yet import the component. So let's copy this and paste it in the top right here, and now we still get an error because we don't have this invoice. Of course you can use this data here to, just for example, let's copy all of this data, copy that, and then we're gonna paste that on the top right here. Right, close this terminal. Let's try to see. Right, this is what we have. Right, looks super clean. There's a couple things that we are going to change in this table. We are going to change the table header right here, the footer, we are going to remove that, and also this caption right here. Let's go back to the code, and for the caption, let's remove that. And also let's just remove all this table head, and now we just have a name, right? And also for the table footer, I just want to remove all of that, and let's save. Let's take a look. Now we have name and also this content right here. I'm going to remove all of that as well. Remove that. Now we just have a payment status right here. Alright, so let's start working with the table row. Here I'm going to add another things. So the first thing is going to be created at, and also here I'm going to put a span and put a share right here. Right, why I put span here? Because I just want to hide this share tags using class name source only. Just like that, it will remove that tags. Nice. And also I just want to maybe I just want to remove all of this and create another variable called JSON data list set equals to, I'm going to paste my example data here. This is just one single object, and we are going to map through down here. Let's do JSON data list, and here we are going to grab the data, and then for the key I'm going to grab the data.id like that, and for the name let's grab that data.name. So now let's go back, and as you can see we have the name right here, and name is going to be test, right? The created at should be come from the created at as well. Let's copy and paste. This is going to be data.created at. Alright, so let's take a look, and this is what we have. We are going to format this with date avns package. Let's open terminal. We can do npm install a date avns, hit enter, and then we are going to basically wrap this data created at with format come from the date avns package and put it right here. But before that we need to do new date and then paste the value inside the new date, and let's give a comma here. I'm gonna say month, comma, day, also the year, right? I think in comma I'm gonna put then after day like that. Let's save that, and let's take a look what we have. As you can see, September 23 2024. Right, great. So what the next we need to do is we're going to create a button right on the cart footer. When I click that button, it should be open the modal. This is the final project, as you can see. All right, that's what we're going to do right now. Let's go back to the let's finish this little bit. Look clean, nice. Let's open the JSON editor component. Let's create another component inside the components folder. I'm going to say add dash JSON dash dialog.tsx. Let's do RFC, and then let's remove that with add JSON dialog. Just like that, we need to render that component inside the JSON editor right here. So let's do that. Add JSON dialog. Save, and then now we should see that text on the browser. Alright, let's styling this a little bit. We're going to add a button basically. And for the dialog, basically we are going to use a Shadcn dialog. So let's scroll down here, and then I'm going to find the dialog right here, click that, and we're going to install it. So I'm going to use npm open terminal, and then here let's do npx shadcn add dialog. Let's do y is going to be install the dialog. All right, it's done. So as you can see inside the UI we have this dialog right here. How to use that? Let's go to the documentation, and this is the example. Let's try to go to code right here, and I think I just want to copy and paste this simple example right here. Copy that here and paste in this return. And also don't forget to import all of this on the top. Let's paste that on the top right here, and now everything should be clean. Let's close the terminal, and then let's try to see right here. As you can see, we have opened. When I open that, it opened the modal. When I close it, close it. So inside the dialog trigger, I'm going to add a button. So let's do a button come from the UI/button, and inside the button I'm going to do add JSON data, just like that. And of course it's going to be as child. Let's do as child, it's going to be true because this is another component. And when I click that, I want to basically open the modal, right? When I click that, it opened that like that. Right, cool. And then another thing is for the dialog content, I'm going to change the dialog title into, let's change this into JSON editor. And also for the description, I'm going to remove all of this. Change that to edit and save your JSON data. And under the header right here, we're going to create the form, right? So let's do a div with class name greet, and then gap, it should be, I'm going to say 4, right? And inside in here, I'm going to create another div, and then greet. Also the gap, I'm going to do 2. And then inside in here, let's put a label. We don't have label, right? So I think we need to install it. Let's do npx shadcn add latest add label and input. All right, so as you can see, we have this label and input. Now let's try to use that label. It's going to become from UI label. And for the label, let's do JSON label or JSON name, I think. Yep. And also inside in here, I'm going to put the input with, let's say input come from UI/input, and let's try to save and see what we have. As you can see, we have JSON name and also this input right here. Let's add the placeholder into enter JSON name, and also for the class name, I'm gonna say rounded into none to remove the rounded between all this corner right here. Next, let's create the JSON editor. We're gonna use UIW code mirror package. And then let's try to copy that package, and then I'm going to open terminal and hit enter. I'm gonna copy this div right here and then paste that down here. And for the label, I'm gonna say JSON data, and also for the input here is gonna become from the package that we already installed. So let's see how we can use it. So here, as you can see, we already installed it. And then to use that, let's scroll down, and as you can see, use it. And basically we can just copy this import right here, and then copy and paste that on the top. Also, we need to use this return here, copy all of that, and then paste down here like that. Of course, we need to create the value state. And then here, as you can see, but now I just want to create state with name. Let's do state with name. I'm gonna say JSON data, comma, set JSON data, set equals to use state. By default, I'm gonna say empty string. And let's put the JSON data on this value like that. And also for the on change here, let's create that on change, or maybe I'm going to put that in here. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna say value set equals to set JSON data into value, just like that. let's try to see what we have on the browser. Let's try to refresh. And then of course we need to change this component into use client because we're using use state on this component. Use client, like that. Save. Let's try to see. So I think we need to also install this package right here, but instead of JavaScript we're going to use a JSON. Say JSON, and then we can grab the JSON here. Let's put the JSON on the bottom here, and we need to just run the function, not send any props on this JSON here, right? And also let's install this package. We can do npm install code mirror /lang-json. All right, it's done. So let's try to see on the browser what we have. Let's try to refresh and see. Hopefully I think we don't yet save that. Let's refresh and click the button, and as you can see we have this input right here, right? Super cool. So anyway, let's go back here, and I'm gonna change a couple things here. Basically we can just input the class name, and then we can do at the border and also the shadow. I'm gonna add small, like that. For the height I'm going to maybe 400 pixel to make it a little bit look nice. And also, what is this? We have this right here. Remove it. And also I'm going to make this dialog a little bit look bigger. So on the dialog content, maximal width, I'm gonna set that to 4XL. Let's save and let's take a look what we have on the browser. Click that, and as you can see it's a little bit look nice. But of course now we don't yet handle the JSON name field, right? We don't store any value on any state. So on the top here I'm gonna create another state, JSON name set JSON name set equals to use state. By default is empty string. So now let's put that value on this input. So we can do value and then JSON name, like that. And also we need to add on change event. We grab the value, and then here, oh, I think we cannot grab the value here because this is an input. So we can grab the event, right? So here I'm going to, basically we can do set JSON name into e.target.value. That's how we put the value on the set JSON name. Now you can say console log. I'm gonna console log the JSON name and also the JSON data. Let's try to open console and see title. As you can see we have title on the console. Also this data here, I'm gonna say data, say hello. As you can see we also get the JSON data and also the JSON name on the console. Inside the dialog content, I'm going to put dialog footer to basically put the button close and save. So here under this JSON data, right, I'm going to put basically dialog footer. So we can do dialog footer, like that. And inside the dialog footer, I'm going to render dialog close. Dialog close, it's going to become from the component /UI, and inside the dialog close we have a button. So let's do button, like that. So inside the button we have a text called close. Because this is another component as a children inside this dialog close, we can add the as child to true in here. Alright, so inside the button here I'm gonna set the type into, just make sure this is a button, not submit. And also we have variant into secondary. Let's create the button for the save, and this is gonna be save. So let's change that to save. As you can see we have the close, it works, and the save now is not do anything. Let's add the on click event here. Let's do on click event. I'm gonna say handle save, right? So let's create the handle save function on the top. So we can do const handle save set equals to arrow function. For now I just want to do empty object, or maybe just return this object right here. All right, nice. And also I just want to add a little bit validation here. when we not put any value on this JSON name and JSON data, the save button should be disabled. Let's go back here, and then for the button here, I'm gonna say this will be disabled if there's no JSON name or there's no value on JSON data, right? Save, and as you can see now, when I remove, it should be disabled. If you follow along until now, we basically successfully create all the beautiful UI right here, right? So now let's try to add the git commit on this command right here. I'm gonna close that one, and then here I'm gonna say git add all, and then git commit. Let's do create UI JSON form. Hit enter, and it will commit all of that code right now. Great. So now let's working with the authentication. We're gonna use Clerk. So let's open Clerk here. Let's go to the quick start right here. Click Next.js, and then to install that, it's super simple. Let's just copy this npm install Clerk Next.js. Hit enter, and also we are going to set up environment variable. Let's create the env.local. I'm gonna copy this one. Let's create that and paste that value right here. Let's grab the Clerk publish key and Clerk secret key on this link right here. Click that. It will redirect you to this dashboard and see what we have on this dashboard. Alright, so this is our value. So I'm gonna copy that and paste it to my environment.local here and save it. So let's go back to documentation, and the next thing we're gonna create is the middleware. So let's create the middleware.ts file on the root. Let's create the file middleware.ts, and then here I want to copy all that content and paste that right here. Alright, nice. So next we need to wrap our application with Clerk provider. It's gonna become from the Clerk Next.js. Let's open layout.tsx. In here we're gonna wrap all this HTML inside the Clerk provider, and also we need to import the Clerk from the Clerk Next.js. And also I think I'm going to just remove all this local font, and then because I just don't want to use that, so let's remove all of this. Let's get rid of that, and also this font right here, we don't need that. Alright, so now let's go back to the Navbar, and here basically we need to render the button. So let's go back to documentation, and then here basically we need to copy and paste. Copy that and paste that right here. And the sign in button, as you can see, this is a self-closing tag. I'm going to change that to should be have children, because I'm going to put this button login sign in into this sign in button like that. And let's change the mode here into, I'm gonna set that to a modal. But as you can see, there's a lot of error here. That's because we don't yet import that from the Clerk. Just make sure you import your middleware here inside the source. If you're using source directory, the middleware it should be inside the source, not on the root right here. Alright, we have the sign button. When I click that, it opens a modal like that. If I click the Google here, it will give a list of the Google account that I have. And if I click one account here, it should be make me login in our application. As you can see here, I'm login, and now I have all of this. I can manage account, I can sign out, whatever. So basically the Clerk is automatically see what the component it should be render on the browser. Either we sign out or either we sign in. But there's a problem now. As you can see, we not really store the user on our database, right? The user is basically storing on the Clerk database. And if you see on the dashboard, as you can see here, we have the total user, active user, and the recent sign in, etc. But we not get the user on our database. Okay, that's the problem. So we want the user should be storing in our own database. So we are going to use Prisma and also PostgreSQL to do that. So let's try to install Prisma. But before that, I think I just want to make a commit in here. Let's say git add all, and then git commit -m install and setup. Let's do Clerk. Alright, so now let's try to do npm run dev again. So first let's install the Prisma with this command right here. Let's open another terminal and paste that right here. npm install Prisma asset dev dependency. Also, next I'm going to say npx Prisma init. So basically this is my blog post, so I'm going to put the link on the description if you want to see that post. So now let's run npx Prisma init. It will generate the Prisma folder and .env file. As you can see, we have this .env. It's basically the database URL, and also we have the Prisma folder, and inside that we have schema Prisma. Right, so let's go back to the .env. So basically I just want to copy all of the value, and I'm gonna use this one env.local right now. I'm gonna paste that right here. I'm gonna remove the env, delete that, and I just want to use the env local. And now my local PostgreSQL is used the Postgres as a username, and the password is random password. And also for the database name, I'm gonna use my DB like that. Right, so now let's try to see the example here. After we change that, we need to define the schema. So let's go back to the schema here, and then let's try to create the schema. User is gonna have an ID. The ID should be string, and also this should be ID, and by default I'm gonna set that to CUID like that. And if this is have also Clerk user ID, it's gonna be string, also unique, right? And also we have the email should be string, and yeah, email I just want to set that to unique, of course. And also name should be string, name should be optional, and we have the image URL. This also should be optional, and created add it should be date time, and then also the default value should be now, and also the update add the type it should be date time, and also update add, just like that. Let's create another model called JSON data. I'm gonna say model into JSON data. This JSON data, it should have an ID should be string, and ID default should be CUID, and also we have a name string, we have the content should be string, we have a user ID, it's gonna be string, and also we have a user that's corresponding with the user that we have on the top right here. I'm gonna put the relation, it should be filled. We have a user ID from here. It should have relationship into the, let's say, reference. It should be on the Clerk user ID. Copy and paste this one, paste it right here. All right. So on the user, we should have this JSON data, and it should come from this JSON data model. Great. After we create the schema, what we're going to do next is we need to basically generate that. So you can say npx Prisma generate. Let's do that in here. After that, let's do npx Prisma dbpush. Okay, we get some error here. I think it's because the schema Prisma cannot read the env.local. So I think let's just try to remove this local here. I'm going to rename that into just .env. Let's remove the .local here, and then try to run the npx Prisma dbpush again, and hopefully now it works. All right, it works. So now we can say npx Prisma Studio, the Prisma on the localhost 5555, and as you can see, we have two model, JSON data, and also the user. We have ID, Clerk user ID, and etc. Also, we have the JSON data with name, content, user ID, and all etc. So now what the next thing we need to do is we need to install the Prisma client. So let's copy the comment here, go to the terminal, and then I'm gonna just stop this Prisma Studio, And let's install this Prisma client, and also we need to create the db.ts file inside the lib, and we're going to use all of this code. I just want to copy and paste that, and then inside the lib folder I'm going to create a file called db.ts, and inside that I'm going to paste the code right here. After we're doing that, now we should be done, right? So now how we store the user.login in our database, because now as you can see here, if user successfully log in, the data it should be storing on the Clerk database, right? It's not stored in our database. So to do that, we are going to do really simple step. That means on this dashboard here, we are going to add condition, right? If there's no user on the database, we are going to add that. Just simple as that. But the better way to do that is on the Clerk documentation. As you can see, it uses this webhooks. But I think I'm going to create another video and explain what is this and how to set up all of this. But for now, let's just do the simple way. So let's first grab the current user that login. So here I'm going to say const user set equals to await for current user. The current user should become from the Clerk. Because this is await, of course, this function should be async function. Just like that. So let's add condition in here. If there's no user login, we are going to just return null. And down here, I'm going to create a variable called login user. Set equals to await or Prisma dot user dot find. I'm going to use find unique where Clerk user ID is equal to user.id. This will check our database if there's user login here is equal to user that we have on the database. If there's no user on the database but user is login, we are going to add that data on the database. So here I'm going to say if there's no login user, I'm going to say await for prisma.user.create. And here I'm going to put in data, and the data that we are going to put on the database is Clerk user ID. It's basically user.id. And also I'm going to put the name. Name should become from the first name and last name. So I'm going to put that right here, user.first name and also user.last name. And also I'm going to put the image URL, set that equals to, it should be user.image URL. Like that. And also I'm going to store the email. Email should become from the user.email address. I'm going to access the first object on this email address array, and I'm going to access the email address. Just like that. So basically it will add new user on our database. Let's run npx Prisma Studio. It will open the Prisma Studio here. And then now as you can see, there's no user, right? Let's try to access the dashboard. When I click dashboard, now it will automatically run this code right here. Let me close this. Run this code right here, right? There's no user on the database. It will add that right here. So now if I go to the Prisma Studio and reload, now you should see now we have one user that stored on our PostgreSQL database. So now let's working with the form. As you can see here, at JSON data here is basically not really send the data on the database, right? So let's first create the route. Inside the app right here, I'm going to create folder called API. And inside the API, I'm going to create folder again called JSON. And inside the JSON, I'm going to create file called route.ts. So in here, let's export a async function. And this function should be have name post because we are going to make a post request in here. And this params, I'm going to remove that and change that to request. This request have a type next request come from the next server. And in here, I'm going to check first. Let's say const, I'm going to grab the user ID from the out. The out should become from the Clerk. And then down here, let's check that. If there's no user ID, what I'm going to do is return an error. So I'm going to say return next response.json, and I'm going to return an object in here, and I'm going to say error. The error is going to be unauthorized. And also for the status, I'm gonna send 401. And down here, if we have a user, we are going to get the name and the content from the request. So let's grab the name and also the content from the request. So let's say equals to wait for request.json. I'm gonna use try and catch. Let's grab the error here. So right here, I'm gonna say const JSON set equals to await for Prisma.json data.create. All right, we're gonna create new data right here, and then I'm gonna send name equals to name, and also the content should be equals to content, and also the user ID should be equals to user ID that we grab from here. Right, after we successfully create new data on the PostgreSQL, what we need to do here is just a return next response, not request, but response.json, and I just want to return the JSON data here. Right, so down here, if something wrong happened, let's do console error, and I'm gonna say error saving JSON. All right, so down here, let's return next response.json, and then I'm gonna say error, and the error is gonna be error saving JSON. And also I'm gonna send the status is going to be 500. Let's try to make a new post request. So on the JSON editor here, as you can see, we render the JSON add JSON dialog right here, right? So in here, basically, I'm gonna send the onSave props like that, set equals to handle save. And let's create the handle save in here. So let's do cons handle save set equals to an arrow function. Let's go to add JSON dialog, and we need to grab the props called onSave in here. So let's first create the interface. I'm gonna say interface. The interface name, I'm gonna say add JSON dialog props, and this one is gonna be have on save like that, and it's take a name and also value, and it should be returning a promise. Let's say promise like that, and it's gonna be just void for now. Right, so the name should be string, and also the value is also should be string. And let's put that on save here on these props. So let's do right here, and I'm gonna say add JSON dialog props, and we can grab the on save right here. So in this handle save right here, I'm gonna change that function to async function, because in here we are going to run the on save with await. So I'm gonna say await on save. So let's send the JSON name, comma, JSON data. And after I click save, I want to basically set the JSON value, JSON data, and also the JSON name back to empty string. So now let's go back to the parent JSON editor right here. As you can see, we get some error here. That's because this handle save, it should be a returning promise. We need to add this async function right here, and then we can grab the JSON data that we'll already send right here, JSON data and JSON name and JSON data basically. Let's copy that, paste that right here, and then inside this function here, what we are gonna do, let's say const response set equals to wait for fetch. We're gonna fetch that into /API/JSON, right? And here that we are gonna send the method. It's gonna be post request, and also for the headers, content type into application/JSON. Also, let's send the body here. So I'm gonna say body set equals to, so first we need to stringify the JSON name and also the JSON data. So here I'm gonna say JSON.stringify, and I'm gonna send, as you can see on the road here, basically we get the name and content, right? So just make sure the name should be name and content. So I'm gonna send the name as a JSON name, and also content, it should be JSON data. So as you can see, we get some error here. That's because the JSON name has a type any. So let's change that to string. Also JSON data, it should be string. And down here, I'm gonna check if the response.ok is true. I'm going to just console log the, maybe say data successfully added, right? And else, if something wrong happened, let's say console log, I'm gonna do something went wrong. All right, so let's try to make a new data right here. I think we need to change that to use client as well on the JSON editor. So let's do that. On the top right here, I want to say use client. Let's save and let's take a look what we have. All right, nice. So now let's take a look on the database. On JSON data, we have nothing in here, right? Just empty. So now let's try to add new one data here. I'm gonna say data one. Let's do object and say name to, I'm gonna say John Doe, and the age, I'm gonna say 24. Let's hit save. Let's go back to the Prisma Studio and I'm gonna refresh. And as you can see, we have new data right here, right? Super cool. We have the name, the content, user ID, and etc. So now we need to get this data on the JSON data table component right here and render that on this JSON data list. Okay, so what we need to do first is I'm gonna create another route here called get request. So let me copy all of this function right here, copy that and paste that down here, and this is going to be a get request. So in this create, I'm going to change that to find many, like that, and then let's remove this data and I'm going to use where. All right, so here where the user ID is equals to user ID come from here. And also down here, I'm gonna say order by, it should be order by created at, and then descending. Also, I want to the response, it should be have ID, let's say true. It should be have name it should be true. And also I have the created at, should be true as well. Nice. Of course, we don't need this name and content right here, and then also just remove this request. We don't need that. Let's change this error. I'm gonna say error fetching JSON list. So now let's try to make a get request on this JSON data table. So first let's create a state here, and also the use state should become from the React, and then here for the type, let's say JSON data should become from the Prisma, and then from the array like this. And by default, it should be empty array. Nice. So here, I'm gonna say const fetch data set equals to sync function, like that. And then it's gonna be a row function. Inside this function here, I'm gonna say try and catch, try, and then down here we have catch. We grab the error, just like that. And then here, let's try to make a fetch request. I'm gonna say const response set equals to await into the fetch. And then here, I'm gonna fetch it into /API/JSON, right? And then here, I'm gonna say const data set equals to await for the response.json. So now we can store the data into the state. So we can say set JSON data list into this data. If something wrong happened, console.error, maybe let's say failed to fetch data, like that, and put the error variable in this console error. Right, I think we're done. And this fetch data, it should be run on the user vec on the first time user go to the website. So let's say user vec, and then here let's run a callback, and then inside this function here, I'm going to add a dependency which is empty array, and here I'm gonna run the fetch data. So now let's remove this JSON data list data on the top right here, and just make sure this JSON data list should become from the state that will update it when we fetch the new data here. Let's save and let's take a look. As you can see, we have this data one right here. It's updated, right? So let's create a new one. I'm gonna say data 2, like that. And for the object, I'm gonna say let's say age is gonna be 39. I'm gonna save, and it's not really close to modal. We're gonna fix that later. Let's close that, and then oh yeah, we need to refresh until we get the newest data. Let's see, right? But we don't get any loading, right? So let's try to add loading first. Here I'm gonna create a state called loading. The loading should have a type boolean, and by default I'm gonna set that to true. So here, after we get the data, I'm gonna set loading into false, and also right here I'm gonna set the loading into false as well. I'm gonna say if loading is true, I'm going to return, for now, just simple loading text right here. And also, if there's no data, I'm going to render some text, right? So I'm going to say if there's no data, I want to return a div, and the text right here, I'm going to say no data valuable, please add new entry, just like that. And on this div, I'm going to add class name called a text center. Also, the text color, it should be text gray 500. Also, I'm gonna add the margin top to 6. So let's try to refresh, and hopefully we have this simple loading right there. So let's go back to the JSON dialog here. Basically, after I click the handle save and it's success, I want to close the modal. But how do we close that modal? Really simple, basically. The first thing is, let's create a state to basically handle the modal to open and close. I'm gonna say open modal, like that. And also the type, it should be a boolean. By default, of course, it's gonna be a false. And then here on this dialog, we have open props basically. So we can have open like this, set equals to open modal. And also, we also need to send open change. On open change should be set open modal, like that. And this button right here, I think let's just try it, right? So here I'm gonna say set open modal into false to make that close. So let's click this now, and I'm gonna close it from here. It works. Close that from here. It works. Nice. So let's say data3 first name into, let's say Bob, right? I'm going to click save, and then hopefully it's close. Great. And then if I refresh, we have new data right here, I believe. Yep, we have the data3 right here. But as you can see, it's not automatically fetch the new data right here. And I want to add some just trick here to basically render this table here every time we successfully create new data. Alright, so on the JSON editor, I'm going to create another state here. So let's do, I'm gonna give a name a refresh key, right? And this refresh key, it should be a number basically, and by default it should be a 0. And then I'm going to increment that set refresh key right here. It should be key, not Q, like that. And I'm going to increment that every time we successfully create new data. So right here, I'm going to say set refresh key into, I'm going to grab the previous value, and I'm going to say previous plus 1, just like that. And then I'm going to send the key on this JSON data table. Let's say key set equals to this refresh key. So this key is always changed, right? It's always triggered the JSON data table to render. That mean this use effect will run. That's why we get the new data right here. So let's try. I'm gonna say add new data here. I'm gonna say new data. Let's say just empty object for now. I'm gonna click save, and as you can see, we have new data. There's something that I missed basically. On this table, I should add the share icon, so I can click that, it will open the detail, and I can share the link to other people to see the JSON data. Right, so let's go back to data, the table, and here let's create the new table cell. Inside the table cell, I should have a link right here. Link should come from the next link. And also inside this link, I have the share icon from the Lucid React. And also this share icon should have class name, the height I'm gonna set that to 4, and also the width I'm gonna set that to 4 as well. This href should be have this link should have href, and this href should be have a / into data.id. All right, let's try to see. Hopefully now we see the icon. When I click that, it opened the detail. All right, so let's create the detail page. On the app right here, I'm gonna create an array, and inside that we have an ID, and inside this folder here I have page.tsx. Let's create the RFC, and then I'm gonna say shared JSON. In this div, I'm going to add a class name called margin top should be 8, and also space y. I'm gonna set that to maybe let's say 4. And inside this div, I'm going to render heading 1. For now, just say maybe data 1 like that, and let's styling that a little bit. Last name into text to XL, also underline, also font bold. So now let's render the JSON editor. Let me go to JSON, add JSON dialog here, and basically we are going to use this code mirror here. I'm going to copy that and then go back to the ID here, and I'm going to put that right here. So let's import the code mirror from the, so basically I just want to copy and paste come from here, the code mirror, and also the JSON. Let's copy that and pasting that on the top right here, just like that. And for the value, I'm gonna say empty for now. And then the on change, we don't really need to handle on change in here because I want to set the editable into false, so user cannot edit that data. It can just be a view for now. Right, let's try to save and see what we have here. Let's refresh, and then basically this code mirror should be inside the client. So let's try to wrap that inside the use client like that, and hopefully now it works. As you can see, now we have this JSON editor, but of course we cannot edit anything right here. This is just view only. If I change the value into random something here, of course we get the value. So now let's create the API so we can make a fetch request on this component. So inside the API /JSON/ I'm going to create another folder here called it should be ID like that, right? And inside the ID we have road.ts. So basically I want to copy and paste come from this get right here. I'm going to copy all of this get request, and then go back to the road and paste that right here. And of course we need to import the next response, this out right here, and also the Prisma. Nice. So the another thing that we need to change is this is for the detail, right? So we need to get the ID basically. So here I'm gonna say request. It should be have type next request, and also I'm going to get the params. In this param, it should be have type, let's say params. It should be have ID, and this ID it should be string like that. So now let's try use these params. Let's first get the, I think on the detail here we don't really need to handle the user not login still can see the data, right? So here I'm gonna say const ID from the params, and on this try here I'm going to find unique because we are going to get specific data, right? Find unique, and then where the ID is equal to ID that we grab from the params. And then here I'm going to remove the order by, and the select I'm going to grab the ID, name, and also the content. And then I think that's it. And also for the response, I think this is fine. And also this is going to be JSON data, just like that. I think we're done. Let's remove this out right here. And then now let's try to make a get request on this shared JSON. All right, so basically we can use come from the JSON data table, and I'm going to just copy and paste everything here, right? Copy that, go back to the shared JSON and try to save. So now let's change a couple things that we don't really need here. This should be JSON data, not JSON data list, because this is not list, just for a single data. And then JSON data should be come from the Prisma client, and it should not be array. This is just single object. And then of course it should be set JSON data, and this should be user flag come from React. And what else we need to add? This ID basically, right? We need to grab the ID from the params. So I'm gonna say params. Let's create the interface on the top. So I'm gonna say interface call share JSON props. Here we have params, and this param should be have ID. The ID it should be string. So now we can put that interface on this component. We can say share JSON props like that, and then let's grab the ID. So we can say const ID set equals to params. So now let's send the ID right here. Of course I'm gonna use backtick like that, and I'm gonna say / and send the ID right here. So now let's try to render the JSON data, and here I'm going to render the name. So we can do JSON data, let's say JSON data.name, and also for the value on code mirror it should be JSON data.content. So here I'm going to say data.content, all I'm going to say empty string. Alright, but as you can see we have some error going on here. So let's try to fix that. And here's gonna be have an ID for the dependency, and I'm going to just put all this function and putting that on this user flag just like that, and now it should be clean. And now let's add loading. As you can see, loading is declared but never used. Let's use it right here. So we can say if loading true, I'm gonna say return. Let's put the just simple loading here, and also the class name I'm gonna say margin top to 8. Right, so let's try to see. I'm going to refresh. As you can see we have loading, and then we have just empty data here. Right, let's go back and try to see another data, maybe data 1. I'm gonna click that one here, and as you can see we have that data, and then I can just basically copy this link and share it to whatever people I want, and now the data should be right there. As you can see, if user not log in, it still can see this data, but if user click the dashboard, if user click the dashboard, it should be redirect user to the root of the application. So let's go back, and then here on the dashboard I'm going to add condition in here. If there's no user, I want to redirect user into, let's say, /. Right, so let's try. I'm going to copy this link and then go to this browser and hit enter. As you can see we have the data, and then if I click dashboard, because we not log in, it redirect me to the homepage. Right, cool, it works. So now let's try to make a new data. Let's go back to dashboard, and I'm going to create a new data here called example data, and I'm going to paste basically a long JSON data here. Right, as you can see, if I click save, it's updated on the top right here. If I click this detail, as you can see we have this scroll, and then of course I can copy that link, share to my friend, and they can basically see the code. I think we're done with this simple project. I think this project is really cool. You can add a lot of functionality in this project to basically increase your skill on web development. You can add maybe password to user that don't have any password for a specific ID right here. They cannot open the data, for example. Right, there's a lot of improvement that you can use in this simple data. Hopefully you learned something new from this video, guys, and thank you so much if you follow along this video until the end. Thank you so much. I'm really appreciate that, and see you for the next one.